Hey guys, okay, last and final section for this unit, we're going to talk about inhalation and exhalation, also known as inspiration or expiration, and can be summed up as our breathing movements. Okay, so this is how your chest cavity is allowing air in and out, and there's several muscles involved that we need to discuss and learn about. Now, when we talk about inhalation, the two types of muscles that are working in over your rib cage and under your rib cage that are going to be antagonistic to one another are something called the internal intercostal muscles and external intercostal muscles. So for the internal set, those are the ones that are going to be inside of the ribs closest to the lungs. For the external set, that's going to be on the outer side of the ribs. Okay, now these work in an antagonistic form. So when one's contracting, the other is relaxing, except for during vigorous exercise, which we'll talk about. Okay, so when we inhale, so for inhalation, the external set of intercostal muscles contract to pull the ribs up and out. So when you inhale, breathe in, your external intercostal muscles on the outside of the ribs are contracting to pull the ribs up and out. During exhalation, so you exhale, the internal set of intercostal muscles are contracting to pull the ribs down and in to help push the air out for you to exhale. Ultimately, what we are working towards is increasing or decreasing the volume of the chest cavity, also known as the thorax, okay? So that the lungs can follow the process of increasing in size to allow air in or decreasing in size to push air out, okay? Also, another muscle at work is the diaphragm, which sits under your thoracic cavity, underneath your ribs. Now, in its resting state, the diaphragm sits up, pushing up. When it contracts, it pushes down. So when it's resting and not contracted, that is when we have air that would be allowed to be exhaled. But when we inhale, it's going to contract and push down, allowing air in, volume to increase inside of that thoracic cavity. Now, when we look at the volume increases and decreases, we require a greater amount of air when we're doing vigorous exercise. So this is where your intercostal muscles can also work to pull the ribs up and out more, the heavier the exercise may be for you, to allow more of a volume of oxygen to be inhaled to make up for any kind of oxygen debt that you may have gotten in your body from vigorous exercise. So just be aware of that. When we have the volume of the thorax increasing for inhalation, the pressure inside the lungs is going to decrease. So as pressure decreases, volume increases, allowing that air to be then filled into the lungs, okay? And then once it drops below the air pressure outside, the air gets forced in. But for exhalation, the reverse is occurring. So the volume is going to decrease. Remember, we're contracting in and pushing all of that air out for exhalation. So the pressure is increasing, volume decreasing, pressure increasing to force the air out for exhalation. So that's breathing movements in a nutshell. You can look at this image, and I will provide these notes for you as well. You can pause it here just to read over this, but this is just giving you kind of an image to depict what we just talked about. That's for inhalation, also known as inspiration. And then you can pause the next image as well right here for exhalation, also known as expiration. So if you see either of those terms, just know what they're dealing with. And again, this will be provided for you in your notes as well. The only other thing to discuss would be the differences between inhaled air and exhaled air, and I will provide this table for you as well, noting the differences of the content of oxygen, carbon dioxide, and nitrogen for inspired or inhaled air or expired air. And that pretty much wraps it up for this unit, okay? Go ahead, make sure you take the notes, write these down, and head on over to your CFU. Good job, guys.